Hi, I'm Caitlin, and this is Book Chats. Thank you for joining me for my February TBR. In my January TBR, it was kind of haphazard, and I will hopefully have a wrap-up video that will honestly probably come out after this one, where I cover what I did read and what I didn't. But in this video, I think I'm actually, because of a variety of circumstances, going to only choose books from this list. So we'll see if I do better this month, keeping to it. Anyway, I want to start out with just one book that is a carryover from January. I know that it will be a carryover from January because I technically have not started it yet when I am filming this, but I will 100% be starting it tonight. That is So You Want to Talk About Race. This is my work book club book. We were going to start it in the beginning of January, and then there was a lot of stuff going on at work for everyone in the beginning of January, so we decided instead to start it on January 21st, which is tomorrow. So I will start reading this today. But I know we will not be done at work before the end of the month, and I will not be done before the end of the month. So this is my only carryover book from January, and it's my only carryover book from January because I have some rules about my reading in February. So before I go through the rest of this, I'm going to tell you guys about those rules. So kind of haphazardly at the very end of 2019 and the beginning of 2020, I decided to join this challenge on Instagram called the Unread Shelf Challenge, and the Unread Shelf Challenge, has several rules, one of which I'll talk about later, but one of the main things that I didn't actually understand when I joined it and was starting it is that I knew there was a every other month book buying ban, and I was like, that's fine, I can totally do that. But that buying ban is also a borrowing ban, and it was supposed to be in effect in January. You guys will know I read a bunch of library books in January, and so I was obviously not participating in that borrowing ban, so I've just decided that I'm just going to be every other month, so the months that are supposed to be, according to the challenge, the buying and borrowing bans, I'm not going to have that restriction, but the months that are free are the months that I will have that restriction. So February is my first month with the buying borrowing ban. The other thing to know is that I just randomly sort of decided at the very end of 2019 that I wanted the first 20 books I read in 2020 to be books written by women. Now, of course, there's already a little bit of wiggle room on this because I didn't finish a book that I wanted to finish in 2019 until the very first day in 2020, and that was written by a man. And then the first book I read after that was written by a husband and wife pair, but I'm still trying to stick to that as much as possible, and I have not yet read 20 books. Spoiler for my January wrap-up, I have not yet read 20 books, and therefore I will be trying to fit all of the books that I read this month into those restrictions. They will be books that I own, and they will be books that are written by women. That being said, the very first thing that's happening right at the beginning of February is that I and Rebecca Lovato are co-hosting a new readathon. It's the Best Pictures Readathon. We used to have a Best Picture collab tag video that came out every year. Then last year, my footage got eaten and we didn't post it. And then this year I was like, if you're still willing to trust me, even though my footage got eaten and we never posted last year, I would love to actually take our collab video and make it into a readathon. That way we can get more people involved and more people to participate, and I think it'd just be a really fun way to celebrate our love of the Oscars, the Academy Awards, and also our love of books. So for this challenge, the way that we're running it is we have a prompt for each of the 9 movies that have been nominated for the Academy Award Best Picture this year, and I will link to our announcement video, and you can go see me talk about all of those and the reasoning behind them, or you can go see Rebecca talk about them. But what is important to know about it is, for this video, for the relevance of this video, is that you decide. So the way it's working is that we have a ballot that you're going to fill out at the end of the readathon, and the ballot is going to count every book that you finished for a prompt. So each prompt that you finished a book for is a vote for that movie, and then we're going to tally them up and see what wins our Best Picture Readathon Best Picture. And so I, knowing all of these other restrictions on my reading, and also knowing myself and knowing that between February 2nd and February 8th, I will be lucky if I finish 2 books, I decided to focus on 2 films, maybe a third, which I'll talk about in a second. And so the first of those is my favorite movie on the list. It's so good. I've seen 4 movies on the list, but I think this would still be my favorite because I just have this immense love and nostalgia for it, and I love it so much. And that movie is Little Women, specifically the Greta Gerwig directed Little Women. And so for Little Women, the prompt that we came up with was to choose a book by a woman, check, first 20 books of the year, that is also about women. So This is where there's a little bit of fudging already. Yes, surprisingly, Caitlin has a little bit of flexibility in her TBR. Who knew? The book that I would most like to read for this is Betsy Tacy by Maud Hart Lovelace. It will technically be a reread for me, but I read it when I was a really small child. Anyway, I own a compendium of the first 4 books in this series, but it's at my parents' house. My parents' house is not that far away from where I live now, but I'm not totally certain I'll get up there to raid my childhood bookshelves. But my backup to Betsy Tacy by Maud Hart Lovelace is Little Women by Louisa May Alcott. This book is like 800 pages long, so it is not readathon material. No. But it is a book that I have so much nostalgia for. It's obviously the book that inspired the movie, that inspired this prompt. And I had this read to me about 20 years ago, and I have not read it since. And now that I have seen the Greta Gerwig Little Women 3 times, probably honestly 4 times by the time that this video goes up, I have wanted to revisit this book and see kind of if the things that stick out in my mind are the things that stick out on a reread, and if there's anything that I've just totally forgotten, and if the characterizations I remember are right. If all of my plans come into place, I also wanted to support one other of the films that I watched, and that is Marriage Story. You can watch it on Netflix. I really enjoyed it, even though it kind of broke me. I don't know, it's complicated to explain. For Marriage Story, we want you to read a book that is about a relationship. I think, not having read it, I think this book will qualify under those, and that is Love Letters to the Dead by Ava DeLaria. This was a huge book back when I started BookTube, like 5 years ago, and I managed to pick up this paperback copy at the Booknet Fest Book Exchange in 2019 because I was like, I am kind of interested in reading that. Based on the back cover copy, I think that a large theme of this book will be the relationship between Laurel and her sister May, who is no longer living during this book. If I read it and it ends up not being the case, I do have a backup, and that backup, I know, backups to backups. And that backup is another book that I picked up at the Booknet Fest Book Exchange, but I think I picked this one up 2 years ago in 2018, and I kind of picked it up on a lark, like as a joke, because of one of my close friends, Nicole, is a lawyer, and I forced her to be in a romance novel book club with me. I'm just going to show you the cover, but they're basically lawyer themed. Anyway, I picked it up as a joke. It's like an art. It's called Seducing the Defendant, the Conflict of Interest series, and it just seemed like when I saw it, like it would just be something that I could just like endlessly laugh about with my friend Nicole. And so if the other book that I have chosen does not end up qualifying for having like a relationship as a feature, I know that this one will, because it's a romance novel. So that is my backup. So those are the 2 books I'm going to focus on for the Best Picture Readathon, which is again February 2nd through February 8th. Then the other part of the Unread Shelf Challenge that I'm going to talk about is that there is a monthly, just so you like at least get 12 books read, there is a monthly challenge aspect as well. For January, just read any unread book on your shelf, which I did manage to get, which I'll talk about in my wrap-up. But for February, it is to read a book that was gifted to you, which conveniently, when I had finished reading all of my like newest buy books in this paper, I changed this paper to be books gifted to me. So I'm going to unwrap this one right now because I don't have any other unwrapped books on my shelf that were gifted to me. I'm going to unwrap this one right now, and we're going to see what we get for February. So I did sort of try to look at what they were sneakily, like through the paper when there was still sun out. And I think I know what this one is, and I think it's the one I wanted it to be. But we will see. I only have 4 of these on my shelves. My friends don't really give me books because they know that I have a problem. All right, yes, this is exactly what I wanted it to be. This is A Million Junes by Emily Henry. My friend Stephanie gave this to me 2-3 years ago now, and I have been meaning to read it ever since, and I actually put it on my Twitter TBR this year, so I was really hoping that this would be what I would unwrap because I need to be reading books off that Twitter TBR, and this whole, like, borrowing challenge every other month means that I'm going to have to supercharge on the months that I'm not allowed to borrow anything from the library, or I will have to magically find the books from the list that are on my shelves. So I'm really glad I was able to find this one. Another, oops, I didn't realize this was happening in January thing is that Kathy again hosted the Read Your Shelves challenge in January, and I was like, oh no, I forgot this was in January when I was making my list. Can I just do it in February? And she was like, of course you can. And so it has a little bingo card, which I'll put on the screen right now, and this challenge, there we go. I am picking books to go with this challenge. I already have to read a book that was gifted to me, so that will be easy. A Million Junes by Emily Henry. Then I decided to go diagonally down. The next thing is to pick a book off your shelves that was bought new, and for that, I want to read Collateral Damage by Taylor Simmons, but I'm looking forward to it because I think it'll be smarky and funny and just a delight. And then after that is a free space, so I might count one of the books that I'm reading for my other challenges, or I might count another one that I'll mention below. After that is nonfiction. This one I probably will not actually finish in February, so I debated like choosing a different book, but I think that this book will be better if I start it earlier in the year. It is A Cat's Guide to Money by Lillian Carbates. Anyway, I've been listening to this author's podcast for about a year now, and I like it. It has a lot of things that I technically already know, but in a way that just is really friendly, and like I've known about them, I'm not necessarily doing them, and so it's like a friendly, non-aggressive way to be like, yes, Caitlin, you should do these things. And then after that, you are creating your own category, so I decided that it would behoove me to do first in a series, and that is because I am going to count Ancillary Justice as my first in a series read. So if I read Ancillary Justice, it will count for first in a series. And then the final Read Yo Shelf challenge that I had skipped was that free space. So if I don't choose one of the books that I'm reading for my Best Picture Readathon, I realized after I set my whole TBR and filmed everything that of course February is Black History Month and Blackathon is happening during February. I actually don't have a lot of books that are unwrapped on my shelves right now that are by Black authors or about Black characters, which I should definitely take as an opportunity to think about like what I'm choosing to purchase and what's on my shelves. Some of it is that a lot of the books on my shelves I purchased several years ago, but still. Anyway, the one book that I know that is unwrapped on my shelves that I did not put in my TBR because it does definitely intimidate me, but I'm now going to put as a possibility so that I can participate a little bit in Blackathon, I believe is what the readathon is called, is The Bluest Eye by Toni Morrison. This book intimidates me so much. So let me know down below if you've read it and if you have any thoughts or encouragement for me. Thanks. Bye. The one last thing. Oh my goodness. Did anyone remind me when I was writing this list that February is only 29 days? I signed up to be a 2020 BookTube Prize judge for the nonfiction category. I'm going to put more information in the doobly-doo about this, but basically what it means for February and for my February TBR is that I will probably be reading some nonfiction at some point. When I filmed everything else, I didn't yet know what I would be reading for the BookTube Prize, and now I know that. So for the octafinals, I am a judge in Group C. So here are the books that I have been assigned to read. I believe they are all memoirs, so I wonder if that's on purpose or not. I'm not sure. Hopefully 3 of those books will be read in February and will be part of my TBR. I'm not sure which ones yet. Now that I've said that, any videos from now until pretty far in, I believe, I'm not allowed to actually tell you guys anything that I'm thinking about the books. I will probably film, if I'm really motivated, my thoughts as I'm reading them, but then that video will not come out until a designated time where it's okay for me to say, like, this is what I thought of these books. So that's the scoop there. Thanks for sticking with me. Let me know down below if you are going to participate in the Best Picture Readathon. What books are you going to be reading, or what movies are you going to be dedicating your reading to from February 2nd through February 8th? Please participate in our readathon, even if you're only reading one book, even if you're only reading one 800-page book. Oh my goodness, I hope I don't end up reading Little Women. But I do want to reread it this year, so I don't know. Complicated feelings. All right, I'll talk to you guys later. Bye.